Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people, depending on where you are watching us from in this beautiful world of ours. And this morning, your evening, I've got the lovely Colin Owensby here with me. I am really drawn to your story because I think your beautiful wife actually reached out to me and said, I think my husband is a good match for your podcast. So, without further ado, Colin, welcome to the show. And would you do us the honor to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Yes, thank you so much, Marie. Yeah. Well, my name's Colin Owensby. I'm an endurance athlete now and multiple Ironman finisher, 100-mile ultramarathon finisher. And I write and speak basically on resilience and how we build resilience and my mindset and performance optimization. So I'm happy to be
Mm,
here and talk about all the stories that got me here.
yeah. Thank you so much for opening up about that because I remember when I got the first shout out on email, I read your bio and I remember writing back saying, like, I'm not really sure what the connection to grief is here. You know, when you read your bio, it's all about uh, being an athlete, being sporty, being resilient, and you speak and you're an actor and you have got all this really, really long bio that puts you in this beautiful light that everybody probably knows that persona of Colin, but there's also a story behind that where I got the response like, no, there is actually a connection to grief and loss. And since this is the topic of my podcast, Unsilence Grief, I would love to start with that story. What is your connection to loss, to grief? Because there's quite a story behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we can take it back to when I was 15 years old. I was always an athlete. I was always in recreational sports in all the different seasons. Had an older brother named
Mm,
Kyle and two really loving parents who just wanted to build a well-rounded life for my brother and I.
mm,
And when I was 15 years old, I was in a really bad car accident that resulted in me breaking my spine and multiple internal organ damage, as well as abdomen damage and everything. And it
mm.
reset my path from basically that day forward. And I can walk you through all the things that I felt through that path because I can relive it as if it happened this
Yeah,
morning. It's so clear in my mind. I was 15, I'm 42 now. So it's like, but it's
yeah,
still so ingrained minute by minute, second by second, what happened. But then I was on the mend after all these surgeries and basically setbacks and wins and setbacks and wins as does any, procedure like that happen. And a few months after that, we very suddenly lost my brother, who was also he was an athlete as well and completely
mm,
unexpected. He had a heart problem that we didn't know about.
yeah,
And he died playing basketball right in front of me. And so from those two moments, my life never took a linear path after that.
yeah,
I went on every day basically trying to live life for today and do my best every day and see, I was wide open to all opportunity that could come my direction.
yeah.
Um, and
Can
so,
I? Sorry, I
yeah,
just want to
absolutely.
ask a question here. I would really like to delve straight into a mindset question here because I mean, you were what? You were 17 when your
I was
brother,
15. I was 15. He
you were
had just turned
15.
17. Yeah, he had
He
just
had
turned
turned
17.
17. Okay, I thought that was all the recovery. I got the timeline wrong. So you were 15 and your brother 17. I mean, where do you get that, coming to the topic of strength and resilience, where do you get that from at the age of 15? Do you think
Yeah.
that the sport, I mean, that must be such a frequently asked question, but I do want to know it as well. Do you think that your attitude with sport had a lot to do with it? Could you apply that, or was that completely unrelated for you? How do you
No,
even
it
start?
definitely it was related, and I have spent a lot of time thinking about that, especially in recent years.
Mm,
My because I'll go back. So when I did break my back and I had all this organ damage, the doctors told me that there was a high likelihood that I wouldn't be able to walk again. And
wow.
coming from my whole identity of being this athletic person who likes to go in nature and hike and ski and
Mm,
play all the team sports and be a younger brother, and
mm,
my identity kind of momentarily there was a threat of it being taken away from me. And at 15, I
yeah,
didn't really know what that meant.
yeah.
And then right on the tails of that, having my brother die, I just was like, well, what what do I know that makes me feel like a human again? And
Mm.
I sort of went back to all these things that my parents had ingrained in me, which I am now talking about with my map of resilience, because it's all
Yeah.
these basically tools in my toolbox that allowed me to paint this colorful life, and
Mm.
allowed me to go find out who Colin is, who is this kid that I'm living with, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Who am I? And so this toolbox that I sort of have now dialed in and honed in, it really is just those tools that I had at 15 years old, 16 years old, to
Mm.
really set me on my path to happiness, fulfillment, curiosity, taking the road maybe less traveled, but also
Mm.
people couldn't understand that. Why, I'm 15, I'm in high school. Those are the ages where people can start dabbling with drugs and alcohol and things like that. And I really didn't. My
Yeah.
my my outlets were really natural, positive, curious outlets. And so
That's
I
incredible
think
that you
in
bypassed
that,
all of that.
yeah, to answer your question, I
Yeah.
think it really was like I just went back to what I know, that what made me feel good. And it was
Mm.
being around people. It was being, grateful. My parents instilled gratitude in me, and
Mm.
giving back even when I was completely broken, giving back through community service. And as soon as I was able to get out and be physically active again, because there was a long period of time where I was in a body cast, where I couldn't physically be active, but I was,
How long,
doing
how
my
long
extra.
were you stuck in there after your injury?
So
Because like breaking your spine,
yeah,
that's huge. That's
there's phases of the recovery, but for the most of the recovery, I had this sort of, it looked almost like a turtle shell in a sense. It was like a
Mhm.
cast that went from my collarbone to my pelvis.
Mhm.
And it sort of just it just really stabilized me there. But I had a hospital bed in my living room because there was a long period of time where I couldn't necessarily go
Yeah.
in the room and all that. And so we had resistance bands hooked up to the hospital bed so I could do little exercises from bed, before I could
Mm.
get up and move around again. And I, I'm like, so I'm 6 feet tall. I don't know how in meters. Apologies for
We do
that.
feet here as well in
Oh,
Australia, so
oh,
don't
great.
worry.
Okay, okay, perfect.
I
Okay.
had to learn it
Um,
because I'm from Europe and we do centimeters, and now I couldn't even tell you. It's like 180 something here, whatever.
yeah, I'm like
Six
189 or
feet,
something,
that'll do for
190,
us.
something like that.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so I got down to 120, 125 pounds, which is extremely,
Wow.
extremely
Yeah.
skinny. All of my muscles had atrophied. So in
Mm.
addition to I had to basically rebuild my body.
Yeah.
And thankfully I was 15 years old, so I'm still in that growing process. Had that happened to me now,
Mm.
I don't know if I would have been able to do it. But at 15,
Yeah.
I'm still growing. My muscles are still mending. My bones are still mending. So it was a faster heal time at that age than it would have been now. I was in that body cast from, let's see, October, November, December, January, February. So 5 months total in the cast.
Wow.
And then I went from not being able to walk, or to being in a wheelchair, to using a walker, to then using two canes, to down to one cane, and then finally being able to walk again on my own. And then my doctors cleared me to get into a pool, which
Mm.
really saw like a rapid increase in improvement in my
Yeah.
physical ability. Because there's no impact when you're in the pool, but you can work all your
Yeah.
muscles and you can get cardio
Yeah.
that way. So once I
Mm.
was able to get into the pool and start swimming laps again, I saw a big improvement. So I would say within a year, I was fully recovered, like
That's
fully recovered.
incredible. Absolutely
Yeah.
incredible when you think of that. Like, especially as you said, you definitely heal faster when you're young. But what what absolutely fascinates me even more so than the physical recovery, which is already quite mind blowing, is how you went through that experience, like the car accident, the losing everything that you really loved, as in, playing sports. That is just huge. A friend of mine, her young son just went through spinal surgery and had to stop. Like his absolute love of his life is playing footy, and he had to completely stop it for, I don't know, the course of half a year, a year.
Yeah.
And so, and that was minor compared to what you went through. And I don't really like comparison, but just to give a bit of a framework here, and being 15 and going through that, losing everything, and then losing your brother and having to deal with the physical recovery as well as the emotional and mental recovery, you had like literally all the levels. Like, how on earth did you get through this? Because one thing I want to bring up here, Colin, is the topic of sibling loss. It is one of the most overlooked and sort of pushed by side forms of grief that we know, because mostly people always go to, how's your mom? How's your dad? How are your parents coping? And hardly anybody ever asks how the brother goes, how the sister goes. And I'm glad that I've got you here, because you are telling the story from the siblings' perspective, and also looking at your parents. There's so many levels that come into this healing journey, because you also went from being the youngest brother to an only child. And that also shifts the dynamic in the family. So there are a lot of shifts that happen in your life. Can you talk a little bit on that, how you dealt with that at such a young age, 15? Your mind game must have been incredibly strong at that time for
Yeah,
your age.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so to your point, I heard it was every day. How's your mom doing? How's your dad doing?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, every day, all day.
Yeah.
And even now,
Mm.
it never, even now. But it never sort of ends. We just kind of get stronger. The pain never really stops, but we just get stronger and figure out how to deal with it. Um, but with being the sibling, I I was old enough that I knew what was going on. I watched my
Mm.
brother die. I wasn't I mean 15 is young, but I was old enough to really know. I was aware of all of it, of what was happening.
Yeah.
Um, I wasn't like
Absolutely.
too young to not really be alert to what was happening. I also
No, I
really
totally get it.
wanted,
My boys are 18 and 16 now, so I totally get it where you would have
yeah,
roughly been with your mindset. Yeah.
yeah, and I really wanted to care after my parents and make sure that they were okay because I also heard every day from people, you should never lose your kid. And so I wanted my parents to know that they had a kid who was there, who loved them and I almost like wanted to do my best for them.
Mm.
I always did, but especially at that point wanted them to know that they still had a kid. Um,
Mm.
and and that I was I've never been asked that question before, really.
I
I
think it
just
might be
wanted
a
to do
super personal question, because the thing is, I can very much understand how you would want to do your utmost best, to make your parents proud and happy. And I also wonder if that could sometimes turn into a burden at times, where it's really intense when you do want to play up, when you do want to do something. And I know your mindset was very much away from drugs and sports and all of that. You said you never dabbled into that, but is that something that it is a lot for a 15-year-old boy
yeah. And
to
then
to have
also
that?
at that
Yeah.
same time, my parents also were starting to split apart as well.
Mm.
And so they ultimately did get a divorce.
Yeah.
And so it's in a strange, maybe mature way. I completely understood the divorce as well.
Mm.
I didn't feel like the rug was getting swept out from under me when that happened.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely wanted my parents individually to also feel happy and feel good,
Yeah.
um, and
Of course.
they, like I was like, you've got to do, and you've got to do what makes you feel good as a human,
Yeah.
and however you can be the most happy, positive person that you can be, you've got to do that. And so I understood the divorce, and I didn't hold any grudges for the divorce.
Mm.
If nothing were to happen and it came out of the blue, maybe, or if I was younger, or if the scenario is different, I think kids can react to lots of different ways to that type of thing.
Mm.
Um, I just, yeah, I mean, as being a kid who's going through it, I had a built-in best friend because we were so close in age. I had a built-in teammate um, my whole life. We did not only sports together, but Boy Scouts together. So we would camp,
Mm.
every other weekend together.
Awesome.
Um, we had our best friends were kind of the same friends too. Because
Mm.
even though like because we were a year and a half apart, every other season we would be in the same age group. If
Oh,
that made
wow.
sense, because
Yeah.
sports, youth sports is like, you know.
Yeah.
So we competed against each other. We wanted each other to do our best, but then there was also this sort of maybe rivalry and camaraderie in a fun way. And he was the older brother, and he was significantly larger than me in body mass
Hmm.
size. So I mean, there were certain sports that there's no way I could hold my own against, and then there were certain sports that I could beat him in.
Hmm.
And so
I cannot
we really
imagine.
had this fun, competitive thing going on, and so for that to be taken away, um, and I never this is I've never really had like a best friend since then. Um,
Mm.
I've had lots of really close friends, and I have lots of close friends, but I've never had
Yeah.
somebody who was like, besides my wife. When I met my wife, she became
Mm.
she became everything for me.
Yeah.
In addition to like the love component, and she she's everything for me on that front,
I love
which
that.
is
You're
really
gonna make me
amazing that I
cry. I
found
didn't
her.
bring any tissues. I love this. I
Yeah.
love this so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your
It's
other point, like when you're
yeah.
growing, I mean, when you're young and you move to a new city or you start a new job or you're going on dates, people
Mm.
ask, so do you have any siblings? And you sort of stepped on this
Yeah.
from a little
Yeah.
moment ago, and you say, well, I kind of in my mind have an instant conversation with myself, like, how far am I going to go in with this person?
Yeah.
Am I going to open up, or am I just going to say no?
Yeah.
And so there's that happens a lot, and it has happened a lot over the past 20 years. Additionally,
Mm.
because I have this massive scar on my stomach, and I was a
Yeah.
competitive swimmer beyond, and now I'm still doing like Ironmans and things like that.
Mm.
I often have my shirt off, and so people say, "What happened to your stomach?" And so it
Yeah.
opens up this dialogue of I was in a really bad car accident, and here's another scar on
Mm.
my back from where they did the spinal
Yeah.
surgery, and so I've had a lot of opportunities naturally and organically to discuss these really hard parts of my life,
Mm.
which I think makes it also easier. I never hid anything under a rug necessarily.
Yeah.
I was all from 15 years old on. I talked about often and fondly. I mean, I have a million
That's
great
so
memories,
good.
and I mean, like brothers can beat up on each other, but at the end of the day, there's this love that you just
Oh yeah.
can't replicate.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's incredible.
it's tough. It's tough, and it still is tough.
Mm.
And then the component of watching my parents go through the pain is really hard. Still, I still get choked up when I think about they weren't there at the place where my brother died, so they had to
Mm.
come to the hospital and never got to see his last moment alive.
Yeah.
And so their last moment was him already being deceased. And I remember when the doctors came out, because they come out multiple times, we're trying our best. We're not having success. We're trying our best. We're not having
Yeah.
success. And they came out a final time and just said, we did everything we could. And um, to to see my parents just
Yeah.
how they just like lose everything in that moment.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's
I
hard to
can't
think
even
about
begin
their
to imagine.
pain.
It is something that it is so hard because it's something that we see in movies. It is hardly ever reality for someone, And I remember when Rob and I, my husband and I, had this conversation about what would you do if something was to happen to me. We had this conversation 3 years prior to his sudden death. And for us, that conversation was theory. It wasn't that we didn't mean it, but you don't ever think it happens to you until it does. And then you are in this moment, and it is so incredibly surreal. That's really the only word that I have for it when you're in this moment and
Mhm.
you get these final news. It's surreal. That is literally
Mhm.
something like I'm in a wrong movie. That can't be
Mhm.
true. Like
Right.
it's so like your brain really needs a lot of time to comprehend fully what actually happened. And I think, seeing the body laying there, it really is there's no deeper and harsher reality check than that, and having
Mhm.
to go through that as a parent, as a wife, as a brother, it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't matter. Uh, it's the relationship that you have that makes the loss so intense. I don't ever come from the perspective which loss is the hardest, because I always say comparison doesn't help us heal. We need to
Hmm.
go into a space where we can find that healing. And I find that healing always needs space. A lot of people try to push too quickly, or there's so much expectation from society how we deal with grief, that it doesn't really allow us the space that we need, how we can handle it. And I
To
want to
that
use that as a
point,
segue. Yeah,
yeah, to my house was full of people for more than a
yeah,
month, all
I
day,
can
all
only
night.
imagine. Yeah,
And God bless all those people because they were really taking care of and propping my parents and
yeah,
myself up and bringing food and things like that. But to your point,
yeah,
I needed space to grieve.
exactly.
And so
I can very much relate to that. Yeah.
we had
We had
so many
people come in
beautiful
and out, and it's
families.
just, it's beautiful, but it's also,
Yeah.
there's a time where you just need your space. You just want everybody to, just give you some space to work through this, to even start processing, because that takes a lot of time as well. Um, I do want to segue to your beautiful roadmap that you have created, and that is
Hmm.
very much based on your very personal and unique experience. And I'd love for you to talk us through that, because this is incredible what you have there, and I think that it definitely can help a lot of people. So I'd love to have you explain it, if you're okay with that. Maybe talk us through that. What did you come up with?
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
yeah,
So I've been asked multiple times how I have the perspective I have of wanting to go and
mm,
achieve more and have this curiosity that just makes me
yeah,
travel the world and do all these things and say yes to all these things.
yeah,
Um, and and I spent some time thinking about like what was it that
hmm,
got me to here? What was the actual thing?
mm,
And if it was, can I boil it down to actually be something that I can hand off to somebody else, almost as a template? And I
yeah,
spent so much time with it, and it really was going back to when I was going through this really tough time. These activities that I did for myself were the activities that I did prior to that hard time, which was the tools that my parents basically raised. It was the way my parents raised my brother and I.
mm,
There was these components, and I don't think it was their intentional, hey, we want to build resilient kids. They were just trying to live a
mm,
full life as well.
yeah,
And this roadmap that I built, it's not just a collection of tools, but it's more about spending time with yourself, learning who you are through these activities and these thoughts that you decide to choose with these tools. And
mm,
if you have this self-awareness, you have confidence, you have courage, and you have also more experiences to know that things are going to be okay when things get hard, and
mm,
to know that you can stay on your path or pick a new path entirely and have it be a beautiful, full, fulfilled life.
mm,
And so I can go through all these tools with you. They're on my website as well, and there's 10 of them that I boiled. There's a million more things you can do, but there's a solid 10 that it's
mhm,
kind of like if I have nothing, if I don't know where to start today, if I do any
yeah,
one of these things or all 10 of these things today on my list, my day will be more filled, more beautiful, more
yeah,
colorful. So we'll start with the number one. It's gratitude. It's finding and having a
mm,
practice of gratitude. For me, there's so many things I can be grateful for. When I'm doing these 100-mile ultra marathons, I'm literally
mm,
grateful that I can even move my leg one at a time. Like I think, man, it's so cool that I get to move my feet. Like even to
yeah.
that point, it's so
Can
cool that
I?
yes, please.
I want to ask a quick question about that, because in the courses and the work that I do, I often said that to me, and this is my very personal experience, and that's why I'd like to have your insight on that. To me, it took some time to go from Rob's passing to really actively lived and express gratitude. It took about
Mhm.
18 months roughly, because I remember, to me, it was connected to the book. Now I forgot the title, but it's like a practice. It's a gratitude practice. It's a 28-day journal where every day you focus on one different area. And I remember I was right in the middle of the book when Rob died, and I could not pick it up again. It took me some time. It wasn't that I wasn't grateful for anything. I was so grateful that I still had our two sons, that I had a house, that I was looked after, mentally, emotionally, financially, physically. Like
Mhm.
I had bucket loads to be grateful for, but to actually practice it and go back to every single day writing down, I'm so grateful. I really could not do it for quite some time. How was that for you? Could you go straight back into gratitude? Did that help you through it? Or did you need some space to actually process and work through it before you could actively express gratitude again? There's no right or wrong. I just would love to hear
Yeah,
your
no,
perspective
so
because,
the things that I've had gratitude towards maybe at initial weren't in relation to my brother or in
yeah,
relation to very soon after, I was extremely grateful for the surgeons that worked on my back because
yeah, of course.
I was a kid again. I was able to run around and be a kid.
Yeah,
But I remember distinctly the community that was around my family at that time, and me going and staying, spend the night at this family's house, spend the night at this family's house because I just wanted more peace and quiet, but to be around people that I
yeah,
loved still. And
yeah,
they loved
okay.
me, and thankfully, and I remember just being so grateful that they allowed me to just
Yeah,
be at their house.
yeah,
Um,
makes
so
sense.
I remember that at 15, just being thank you so much for letting me be here,
Mm,
and they would cook a
yeah,
dinner for me, and I remember being
mm,
grateful and really appreciative of those moments. So yeah, right away I was still practicing that thank you, that thank you
that's
moment
incredible.
for and to my school community. I went to a really amazing private school, and thankfully,
Mm,
I and they were it was a religious based school, and they propped my family up and propped me up.
mm,
Still, I mean, like I got a text message from this literally today from the girl who was dating my brother at the time when he passed.
Oh,
And she was texting me because so we're still locked in, and one of his other best friends
yeah.
is really high up in the Navy right now, and so
Mhm.
we talk all the time.
That's
But yeah,
beautiful.
no, yeah, there was a gratitude there for them taking me under their wing
Yeah,
too,
that makes a lot of
which was
sense. Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you for sharing.
I wasn't grateful for his death,
Of
but
course.
there actually became a point when I was in a strange way, and I can talk to this about this too.
Hmm.
I studied this. I was kind of always looking for why stuff happens, and I think you always want to know why stuff happens. But I was studying this type of spirituality, and they had a thought that you don't you don't die from this life until you have finished this life's work. And I realized that when I heard that, I was 24, 25 when I heard that. But at my brother's funeral, his memorial service, there was like 3,000 people, and he had touched so many lives in his 17 years, and he was a good guy, and
Mm,
he was a mentor, and he was even our Boy Scouts. He was like, there's like different ranks in Boy Scouts amongst the troop where you're like the lead scout, and he was
mhm,
that.
mm,
And so he was like the junior camp director for the camp that we went to every year and things like that. And so I realized that he accomplished his life's task, whatever that might have been. He affected
mm.
so many beautiful lives in those 17 years, and he was ready to move on. And I found peace in that. Um,
Yeah, I
there
can
was
very much understand that.
there was a purpose to it,
Yeah.
you know? And he didn't have anything else to accomplish necessarily. And we all who love him wonder, God, what would he be like now? For years when I was still living in that house that we were living in, I was kind of waiting for him to walk in the front door, you
Mm,
know?
yeah.
You sort of expect you to hear his car pull up in a
Mm.
way. And no, but I'm really grateful that he had affected all those people, and he did accomplish what he was supposed to accomplish in his lifetime. I think
I love
so.
this
I
so
got
much. I can't thank you enough for sharing this because for me, this spiritual perspective, it really does change so much in your acceptance and finding peace with all of that. I had a moment like that after Rob died, where it literally hit me. I call it now I call it my spiritual epiphany, where I realized this was our soul contract. he, like, we decided on a soul level to come and do this for me to do the work that I do now, and there was so much acceptance and peace and love and healing in that moment. So for you to share that, I really, really appreciate that, because it is so beautiful to look at it from that perspective. And I absolutely believe in that perspective, that we come here for a purpose, and when we fulfill that, we go back home. That
Hmm.
is how
Yeah.
I look at it. And there's so much peace and love and understanding and healing in that. I really love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, I'm
Mm.
really glad that I was able. So that was, I'll jump to the 10th pillar, which is
Sure.
finding a
Yeah.
spirituality, finding some type
Mm.
of spirituality in your life. Because I went on this journey. I mentioned that I grew up in a specific church, but I
Yeah.
went on this journey to sort of find, I wanted to learn all of the spiritualities and all the philosophy and theology that I could figure out. Because I wanted to hear all those types of thoughts, and that thought wasn't
Mm.
taught in the church that I grew up in. So
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
really grateful that I went on this sort of theology quest to try to figure out, maybe there's answers out there. And by
Yeah.
doing that, I found out more about myself and to enrich my life. Not to make it corny, but there was, and I've mentioned this on other podcasts and things like that, but there's Bruce Lee, the martial arts guy. He had
Mhm.
this teaching called Jeet Kune Do, is the way of no ways. Become a master
Mm.
of every martial
Mm.
art, and then when you're approached with a certain situation, you will have the tool because you've mastered everything. And so I approach
Yeah.
spirituality that way as well. I mean, like
I
it kind
love
of goes
that.
against it
Absolutely
kind
love
of
it.
goes against certain religions because they want you to have that one God or whatever that might
Mm.
be. And so it goes
Mm.
against like the religiosity, but the spirituality underneath all of it, there's a lot to be learned from there.
I
So
want to
yeah.
say thank you so much for sharing this, because I think it has just given me a really good explanation for something that I never had words for when it comes to my spirituality. Because people do ask you, what's your spirituality, or are you Christian, or are you Catholic, or like, I grew up Catholic. I went to a Christian church for quite some time, and then I found my own path, and I always felt like, is that a bit wishy-washy for some people? Is that like, finding whatever works best for you? And it didn't feel like that. I felt quite solid in my beliefs, in my spirituality, but I never really had words to explain how I feel. And you
Mhm.
just explained it in such a beautiful way that really landed for me. I love that. So thank you. Um, I know we're a little bit over time now, but I really want to ask you two more things. Firstly, the roadmaps. Thank you so much. And I know we got a little bit sidetracked with that, but it is on your website, and we will be sharing your website in the show notes. So anybody watching this, you can work through this. But what is the best way for people to connect with you if they want to work with you, if they want to hear you speak, if they want to invite you to speak at an organization or something? What's the best way to reach out to you? On your
Yeah,
website
thank
as well?
you. Yeah, so I have a website and I'm on all the social medias. I'm at the Colin Owensby on pretty much
Hmm.
everything. And then my
Perfect.
website is thecolinowensby.com.
Hmm.
I've got a bunch of other stuff and my different movies and TV shows I've been on up there, and my
Mm.
modeling stuff from over the years, and all kinds of my thoughts
Awesome.
and little
All of you.
things up there. So yeah, please reach out to me. I love connecting with people. And I'm most active on Instagram, but I'm on everything.
I
Yeah.
love it. Thank you so much. And my final question to you, I would love for you to wrap us up. If anybody is going through loss, through grief right now, or literally just feeling lost in their lives at the moment, and they don't really know where to start, what would you say to them if they're really in acute grief and don't even know where's up? What would be the first step that you would recommend that they could turn to, or a tool that they could use?
Yeah, so I had this mentor, spiritual mentor, and he gave me a tool. And he basically said, open up your notes app on your phone or write it in a journal, and
Hmm.
create this list. And it can be a growing list. It doesn't have to be done today, but you basically make a list of everything that you can think of that is an activity that makes you feel happiness. Happiness is a fleeting emotion, just like sadness. But if you can
Yeah.
link up these activities and feel happiness repeatedly, you're going to have a more fulfilled life and colorful life. But these activities, so we would stack them up and I'd make a long list of I really enjoy talking to this person. Every time I talk to them,
Mm,
they make me feel good. That is
mm,
a phone call to that person's going on my list. A hike
yeah.
to this specific mountain is going on my
Mhm,
list. A surf session at this specific wave is going on my list. And then so if I'm ever in this moment of just darkness, which thankfully I
mm,
don't have these much anymore because I've built this life around
mm.
these tools. Um,
Awesome.
I can pick anything off of this list and it gets me out of that hole today and it puts me doing something that genuinely makes me feel filled. And then when I'm doing those activities repeatedly, I can look around and see who's doing those activities also. And that's another peer group
Mm,
and a community for you to dive
love it.
into and be a
Yeah,
part of. So I think that's a tangible thing you can do today. Um, and if you have
beautiful.
any other questions, find me on Instagram or at my website. I'd be happy to help you out with some other ideas.
I love this. Thank you so much, and it made me feel really good talking with you today and sharing those things. It's in those moments when I have a guest on Unsilenced Grief that it makes me feel really close to them because there are always parallels. There are always reasons why we connect, and I'm really really grateful. And please hug Sam for me and give her a big fat thank you from me for connecting
Well,
us. I love your story. I will definitely follow as well. And thank you so much for being here. So,
thanks so
if
much.
anybody watching this got something out of this, please hit the subscribe button or share this episode with somebody who needs to hear this. It's always in those little moments when we share things that we have no idea what ripple effect we can cause. So, thank you. Thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing your story. This is Colin and Marie signing off. Bye for now.